Welcome into our Sunday defensive grades. We're talking Texas 31-14 win over the Kentucky Wildcats on Saturday. I'm Gerry Hamilton, joined by CJ Vogel, in for Bobby Burton today. I graded Bobby an F, so he's out, and CJ is an A, so he's in. No, Bobby's traveling. But let's kind of start with our general thoughts on this game, CJ, from a defensive side. Your takeaways. Let's start with the first half, your defensive takeaways.
I thought that's exactly what the Texas defense should look like against Kentucky, right? And first half especially, I thought they did very well. And I mentioned it in rapid reactions earlier today, Gerry, but, Kentucky fumbled the ball 6 times. I thought Texas got a bit unfortunate, unlucky on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, 2 turnovers, 2 heck of a plays on those interceptions by Jelani McDonald and Andrew Makuba. But first half, I thought that's what you wanted to see, right? You came out, you stopped the run, you got out to a nice lead, which forced Kentucky to sit back and throw the football. And obviously you end up with 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. They were flying around. The individual playmaking was evident on all 3 levels. And overall, really impressive performance once again. And it started off quick with that first half.
It's crazy, CJ. You mentioned that the 5 fumbles, none lost by Kentucky. I know we're talking defensive grades here, but I can't remember the last game there were 11 fumbles in a Texas game. That is, we'd have to go, but somebody's going to have to tweet that. You'll probably find that. Like the last time there were 11 fumbles in a game Texas played, 6 by Texas, 5 by Kentucky. Just where's the number match up? But yeah, I thought it was spot on. When you look at the stats from this game, Kentucky only had 14 first downs.
Right.
Only 3 rushing first downs. That's a monster number for Texas in this game. And look, they gained 95 yards on the ground, but they lost 74 on sacks. So it came out as 30 rushing attempts for a net of 21 yards. You take that all day against Kentucky because that means you're stopping first down run enough and you've got them behind the chain. So I thought Texas did their job. Obviously, they forced Stoops to go to his second-team quarterback, who probably is their most talented quarterback, but he still forced a quarterback change. For him to go with a freshman on the road in that game, total offense, if you look at the numbers, CJ, 232 yards on 55 plays. That's the other thing. Texas had 78 plays to Kentucky's 55, but 55 plays, 4.2 yards per play. Texas as a whole, I thought, another tremendous defensive performance. We'll get into some of the positions here coming up, but that's an all well-rounded defensive effort by Texas.
I completely agree. And go back to that first half. Listen to these drives, right? They had 6 drives in that first half, 16 yards, 3 yards, and a 3-and-out. Then they obviously had the 73-yard touchdown drive, 3-and-out, or with the interception, you gain 10 yards. Then you gain 1 yard, and then you gain another 1-yard possession. So that's, aside from that 173-yard touchdown drive, out of the 6, Kentucky accumulated only about 25 yards of total offense on 5 different drives.
And they had 18 on the first carry of the game.
Spectacular showing by the Texas defense again. And we'll dive into this a bit later, but I was thinking before we went on air, Gerry, I like to sit back and say, all right, what were the big plays? Who made them? And this defensive lineup, I have 7 guys listed. And I normally don't do that, right? Normally it's just who came up with an interception, who had a couple sacks. It goes 7 deep right now, and it's not including any Alfred Collins or Vernon Broughton, who I still thought had really, really good games for the Longhorns.
Yep. And before we get to these positional defensive grades, let's take a second for the sponsor of the defensive grades, and that is Carrot Concierge. Carrot Concierge, so I thank you very much for being a sponsor of the defensive grades and a sponsor of On Texas Football. What are you looking for? Holiday gift idea for her? Hey, look at this. Tenant bracelets of all sizes, a fine jewelry in the nice bracelets, rings, bracelets, necklaces. They have you covered. Morse code rings. Carrot Concierge has you covered. Anything you need to go buy for that special someone around holiday time. The Carrot Concierge, thank you very much for being the sponsor of the defensive grades and a sponsor of On Texas Football. All right, CJ, let's start with defensive line. And this is going to be the full game grade for the Texas defensive line. I'm interested to see kind of your thoughts on the defensive line and where you go with this grade.
Yeah, look, You mentioned earlier, if you're at less than 1 yard of rush,
yes,
on a net average, hey, you're doing something right up top. And look, I think coming into the game, the kind of theme around Kentucky is, hey, they like to ground and pound, right? That's exactly what they want to do. 18 yards in that first attempt, and after that, where did you see much success? I truly didn't see many at all. So
they had outside after that 18-yard run, there was 19 carries for 62 yards from the running backs. You take that all day against Kentucky.
100%. And again, that's a talented Kentucky team whose MO wants to be physicality up front. And I know I mentioned, I didn't have the big plays necessarily for an Alfred Collins or Vernon Broughton, but look, I thought they stood up. I thought they did very well. There was gap containment. And again, the one play I did have written down was Jermaine Lole, who, again, fourth down stop to shoot the A-gap, make a tackle for loss. Really, really impressive stuff. And that's the type of play that Texas needs from that interior. And it's been consistent so far this year, Gerry.
And let's talk about some of the numbers for the defensive line as a whole here. Barron Sorrell, 5 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Trey Moore, 4 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. Alfred Collins, 4 tackles, another game of multiple tackles, half a tackle for loss. I mean, you go down that list of guys. Vernon Broughton, 3 tackles, right? Colin Simmons, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, a QB hurry. Like you said, Jermaine Lole, tackle for loss. Sadir Mitchell, half a tackle for loss in this game, continuing to play. And again, he'll have to play against A&M because A&M's very similar in the run game to Kentucky. So, CJ, what would you give this defensive front as a whole? And that's in the run game, rushing the passer against Kentucky on Saturday.
It's an A. It is. You have 6 sacks. You have multiple tackles for loss of 11 tackles for loss in general. You got after the quarterback. You made life very difficult for Brock Vandegrift. And, hey, you flushed out Cutter Boley, I thought, very well. And credit to him because he actually made some really impressive throws in my eyes on Saturday. But to do so under duress, to do so out of the pocket and on the move, not an easy thing to do. And Texas did a really fine job in my eyes of moving the pocket and creating pressure often. 54 yards lost on 6 sacks? That's a lot of yards. So that's an A for me on that front line.
I go a solid A, and I almost went A+ on this. But I'm going to go solid A. Anytime you force a quarterback change, that means you're getting to the quarterback and you've disrupted the timing to the point where the opponent says, we got to take a look at another guy because this guy's not, he is not. He has a lot of pressure on him. He's not getting the ball out of his hand. We got to have a change up here. We got to have a change up. So that's a good start because it wasn't a change due to injury. But then, controlling that run game, like I said, after that 18-yard carry on the first play of the game, Kentucky running backs had 19 carries for 62 yards. That dog will hunt in the SEC.
Yep.
And the other thing is going into this game, CJ, we talked about Kentucky giving up 27 sacks in 10 games. And we knew Texas could win one-on-one matchups without PK and Nansen having to bring the numbers. And they did their job. They did that. Multiple guys with sacks I think 3 edge guys had sacks in the game, right? And you had tackles for loss on the interior. So I go solid A. All right, CJ, let's move to linebacker now. I mean, we could just give Anthony Hill an A+ and grade the rest of the guys. I think that's probably what you do in this game, right? But what do you see from the linebackers? What do you like from the linebacker play?
I mean, it's hard not to start with Anthony Hill. And we talked to him post-game. He said his favorite player growing up, Gerry, was Bobby Wagner. And
Bobby Wagner's favorite college player is now Anthony Hill.
He was looking like Bobby Wagner, 10 tackles, 6 solo tackles, multiple sacks. He was everywhere. And again, that conversation is getting a bit louder for maybe the best linebacker in the country. I mean, he's been so impactful in so many big games for the Longhorns, and Saturday was no different. For him specifically, A+, right? I think that was a really special day for him. Leon Galafau coming in with 4 tackles as well. Look, his role's been increasing as well. I know that the snaps maybe don't rival that necessarily as the other starter on the starting lineup, but right now, I can't look at the Texas defense and say, there's a weakness at all at the linebacker spot. So I believe he played 28 snaps out of the 57 possible. So you kind of see how Texas likes to move around and substitute in some of those linebackers. But again, that's a big part of where Texas has success defensively. Those big passing plays that there were a few, they didn't come over the middle of the field. They weren't targeting linebackers, which is important and a very important thing for me to point out there as well. But the run game as well, that they're key in that instrumental containment of the quarterback. So for me, it's another A grade for the linebackers.
Yeah, and so Anthony Hill, again, forced fumble as well with that game. Maurice Blackwell blew up a play through the A-gap. Another game we talk about, and Anthony Smith plays more, in fact, impactful snaps as the season moves along. Anthony Smith, when he's on the field, he does something every single game that shows up in the box score, but also kind of sticks in the back of your mind. And you say, yeah, I'm going to remember that one for next year, right? Yes. So the defensive, the linebackers as a whole, the only thing I would say, LaFowl, bad run fit on the first 18-yard play of the game. And obviously somebody, if a team's going to run it 20 times with their backs, you're not going to be 20 for 20 on your run fits, right? We're not expecting perfection. I'm going to go A- for this group. So we've been giving Texas A's all the way through here. A on the defensive line, both of us. A at linebacker for you. A- for me. So it's pretty easy, clear to see where this thing's headed. But let's now move to the secondary. CJ, again, secondary, multiple interceptions. Now, they did bite.
Yes, they
did. They got caught with their eyes in the backfield more than I remember in a while this season. So what are your thoughts on the secondary against Kentucky?
It was funny. I was sitting there at halftime looking at the big explosive plays for this game, and I'm thinking, you know what? Kentucky has the two longest plays of this game. They have a 43-yard and a 42-yard reception. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how often has that been the case where Texas had allowed multiple 40-yard plays in a game, and I couldn't think of it. And obviously they made the switch at quarterback. And again, credit to Cutter Boley, because I thought he was putting some really impressive throws out there against really tight coverage. But I think Texas maybe got a little too aggressive in the back secondary, Gerry. Again, you move to a freshman young quarterback, that's the mindset. And I think that's kind of where the IQ and the intelligence of this Texas defense maybe bit them a little bit, saying, hey, we know that he's probably going to take the short throws, the gimmies. I can jump that. I can, find a way to get my hands on a football, and that happened twice. But you also allowed 6 plays of 15 or more passing yards for probably the first time this season. It felt like Texas was maybe a bit susceptible in the back end, but the top plays, the Jelani McDonald interception was maybe the best of the year. Andrew Makuba, a leaping from center field interception from that safety spot. It was really impressive. So I ultimately understand why Texas was so aggressive in that back secondary, but they did get maybe a bit leaky from what we've seen the entire season.
So what's your grade?
I'm going a B+. I think those 2 interceptions really carried the water there.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Taft, physical. He had to be physical. They came at him late in that game. Physical. Again, that play by Jelani McDonald is incredible. That is a sign of growth as a young safety in that zone coverage. It's almost a pass off to see the play and then make that athletic of a play. The NFL scouts are going to be asking Sarkisian about this guy in the offseason. Headed in the spring practice. That's just going to be the reality. But Andrew Makuba, quality game on senior day, as did Michael Taft. Manny Muhammad made a tremendous play in the run game in the second half. Jahdae Barron may not have had that may have been arguably not worst game. I mean, he hadn't really had a bad game, but that may have been, if you can call it his worst.
You got beat, Gerry. I hadn't seen that all year.
It's rare, but so I'm going to give this group a B, solid B, because look, they did get caught with their eyes in bad positions for the first time in a while, and Kentucky hit them on a couple of big plays. But again, look, if you stop the run and you're getting pressure on the quarterback, they have good players too. Barry Brown may not be able to catch a cold, but he's fast. Yeah. I mean, he's fast. Good tight end as well. So I'm going to go. You know what? I'm going to go solid B. I was thinking about B-, but I'm going to go solid B. So, CJ, defensive grade overall for this, because what we do with these defensive grades, we grade the position, right? Then we come back and grade the defense as a whole, and that may look different than the positional grades would lead us to believe. So I don't think it is in this case. What is your grade for the defense as a whole in this game?
I think you have to go with an A, and that's what I'm going to do, right? I mean, you'll only allow 7 points offensively. You hold an SEC opponent, regardless of who it is, to 230 total yards. You force a quarterback change. You get 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. I mean, the opportunities for Texas to have multiple turnovers were there, right? A ball bounces a different direction multiple times, and hey, you're looking at a 4, maybe 5 turnover game, and that's really, really encouraging. Again, this Texas defense has been sound all season long, and really only the offense is the reason why they allow points at times. So an A for me for the defense for that performance against Kentucky.
I'm going to go a solid A, and I'm going to go through the stats, and around the play, which I think is an A, the box score even screams A. The box score may actually scream A+ in a way. Yeah. Kentucky, 14 first downs, 2 by penalty. So they had 12 first downs, only 3 rushing, 9 passing. Again, 30 rushing attempts, 21 total yards, 74 yards lost in sacks. So they ran the ball for 95, which you would have taken before this game started if you said Texas is going to hold Kentucky to 95 yards rushing, knowing that the Kentucky counter game and in the run game is where they had to be successful. The running backs had 20 attempts for 80 yards, and 18 of those came on the first play of the game. So after that, Texas shut it down. Had 2 interceptions, right? They gave up a touchdown, but they had 2 interceptions in this game. 232 total yards, as you said, 55 plays is all Kentucky ran, and that's when you're not getting first downs in a ball game, right? They caused 5 fumbles, didn't get any of them, but then they had 6 sacks. I mean, so that leads you to A all the way. So there's nothing else we can do. CJ gave the defense an A. I give the defense an A. I thought it was a tremendous performance. CJ, what else you got?
I was just going to say third downs, money downs, 2 of 13 for Kentucky. And to your point about not being able to extend drives, keep the offense on the field, we talked about the first half, short drives that Kentucky had, really. Texas was great on third down, and they were great at forcing them into long third downs as well.
Yeah. And before we get to special teams, which we have to grade, let's take it a second again for Carrot Concierge, our sponsor one of our sponsors on Texas football and our defensive grades. What are you looking for? Anniversary gift for the wife, maybe engagement ring for the girlfriend, holiday gift ideas for the special woman in your life. Carrot Concierge has you covered. Look at that. Look at that. The tennis bracelets of all sizes, anything you need from necklaces, earrings, bracelets, Morse code rings. They have you covered at Carrot Concierge. And thank you, as always, the Carrot Concierge for being a tremendous sponsor of On Texas Football. Follow Carrot Concierge here. There's your QR code. If you're listening on podcast, go to On Texas Football YouTube and watch this same broadcast, and you'll see that Carrot Concierge code to get that special someone in your life, whatever you're going to get them for the holidays, birthday gift, anniversary, or whatever the case may be. All right, CJ, we're going to end with special teams and mixed bag.
Yes.
So go with your mixed bag grade. What you got for us?
It was maybe a C+, B-. It wasn't a pretty game. I mean, you missed a field goal. Your returns still hit or miss for the most part. You didn't have many opportunities in the kickoff game. But I'm looking at that punt return game for the Longhorns. It's a coin flip, Gerry. You don't know whether or not it's going to be sitting there saying, "What was that?" or whoa, did you see that? You know, and that's fine. But I think you'd like to just have that normal consistency. I know we're going to get 6 yards. I know we're going to fair catch. I know that we're not going to run the risk of a fumble, and that happened on Saturday as well. Texas put the ball on the ground on a punt return. Fortunately, they were able to hop back on it, but it's been a mixed bag this year. And when you add in a missed field goal again, hey, Bert Auburn's 9 of 13 this year. Maybe not the numbers that we expected. At least the quantity's down, which is a good sign. But the makes need to be more consistent, especially from 40 to 49 yards right now.
And the other thing I would add, CJ, is you almost gave up a kick return for a touchdown in that game. Mm-hmm. But Barry and Brown just has fumble. He has issues with his hands and holding on to the football. But Texas almost got creased on that. And if he doesn't fumble that ball, I don't know what happens on that play. So you gave up. You were leaky in the kickoff return. Now, Barry Brown made a bad mistake on one of those early where he tried to reverse field, and Texas had really good coverage. But they got leaky on that one kickoff return, and It didn't hurt Texas on Saturday because Berrien Brown's just not real good with ball protection or with his hands. But there was a play there to be made by the Kentucky kickoff returner in that game. So what'd you go with? Did you decide between B- and C+?
I think I'm going to rock with a C+. That was probably the one area where I wasn't feeling confident leaving the stadium having watched what I saw on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think C+ there because, anytime you fumble on a punt return, you miss a field goal. It was makeable. It was a longer, 45-plus yard field goal, but makeable field goal for experienced kicker, and then a little leaky on that one kickoff return. I would go with C+ as well. All right, for CJ Vogel, I'm Gerry Hamilton. This has been the Sunday edition of Grading the Texas Defense. We'll talk to you guys later today, tonight on the Longhorn live stream, tomorrow, Coffee and Football, Winning Drive, and a number of other shows. Again, for CJ, I'm Gerry Hamilton. You guys have a great Sunday.